I think you brought me here because I'm the chief scientist for the UNCCD. This is the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, which is the treaty that's focused on land. It's one of the Rio Conventions. And that means that we're sister convention to the one focused on nature, the Biodiversity Convention, and the one focused on climate, the Climate Change Convention. And together, we try to take on all the dynamics that keep this entire planet healthy and moving forward. We're not only talking about wildlife and plants and that, we're talking about food, we're talking about people and their livelihoods. And in the UNCCD, the focus is a mix of policy development and ensuring that science underpins that. And my job is in that space to make sure that there's an interface between these two. I don't do it alone. We have a group of scientists that volunteer and help with this. But I also work with delegates from all 197 parties to the convention that have a scientific focus. And together, we try to move all of the work forward, addressing the challenges that prevent success. It's a wonderful question. Before I worked for the UNCCD, I worked on the boundary between science and society. So I was part of the world of extension, working in local communities. And then it became apparent that we have to have another part of the triangle here. We have to have policies that are well aligned, that make it possible for businesses, for local communities to be successful, to be underpinned by healthy land so that everything can move forward in a good way. So the space here is not an easy one. Policy making is a synthetic process. You have to take information that often you can't put into an equation and bring it together to make a decision. And science is reductionist and frequentist. What do I mean by that? We have to bring it down to a little number with an answer and the level of uncertainty, or we show a correlation. We understand that this is related to this. But giving a policymaker those two things is not enough. There's got to be crossing that bridge and transforming that information first into policy-relevant key messages so the nature of the problem and the solutions is unambiguous. And even another step to put it into policy language that can be negotiated by these countries. If everyone agrees, you end up with something that's part of that policy, and that means everybody in the entire world, all countries, can move forward in a common way. It can be very, very powerful when that happens and can make a very big difference for everyday people, even though they don't feel it so directly. You know, in most organizations, the assumption is that the organization is the boss. And in the United Nations, in a way, that's true. Many organizations are agencies that are doing things. Even they ultimately respond to what countries want. But because they're implementing, once they know they're supposed to implement, they can go and do it. But a treaty is a different thing, right? It's a policy instrument. And to make it dynamic, to make it alive, every year, every 2 years, governments have to get together and decide where are the barriers, what do we need to do next? And in that space, there's a tiny secretariat, not very many people, that have to both help them take that step, help them integrate what they're doing, talk with each other with some common language to get started. We don't do the work. They ultimately do all the hard work, but we have to make it easy. Otherwise, it's just chaos in those discussions. And at the same time, we have to be on top of what's going on, particularly in the scientific community, to help them understand what they might be asking to do next so that they can prepare the next set of decisions. So they are our bosses, but at the same time, They are those that we have to empower to make something happen on the ground. For concrete examples, I'll try to give you some things where the parties, the countries themselves, the governments, recognize that they might not be able to solve the problem unless they had more science on a particular topic. So to give you an example, for many years, almost all of our effort in the environment has been about what we should do, if it's land, in this farm or in this forest, in this particular place. But the problem is, we have another space where land use decisions are made. And if land use decisions change what we're doing there, it doesn't matter if we had the best practices in the world. So a nice example is you're doing everything you can to improve farming, to make it more sustainable. And then the next thing you know, the farm is sold and houses are built. That's a land use change. That's a land use decision. But if it was prime agricultural land, you're reducing the entire world's ability to grow the food necessary that everybody needs. One little farm doesn't seem like much, but this gets multiplied across all countries. This space is called land use planning. And there are scientists that have dedicated their whole careers. But in terms of the total amount of science, it's a tiny fraction of the rest that I was describing. So the country said, we know we have to do better in supporting this space, but we don't know how. So we'd like this group of volunteer scientists to work on this problem, produce guidance that also includes conclusions and policy options so that we can then make better decisions to help countries address this. And sure enough, we engaged the scientists, they went after it, and now there's progress in that area. Again, it's not something that everybody reads about in the news, but can you imagine if we all, in every country in the world, made more effective decisions, kind of growing the food in the right place, protecting biodiversity where it is, where nature is, putting that climate change mitigation plantation somewhere that doesn't impact those other two things, pushing the urban growth into degraded land where you can't use it for anything else, or maybe solar energy or whatever. That optimization means everybody wins. And if we don't do it, we won't achieve any of our goals. It's all dependent, ultimately, on healthy land. Well, I first have to say that it's a two-way street. Working with these students has been amazing, and actually, their inputs are influencing what I'll do next when I go back to Bonn and continue my work. But I also have, because I've gone down this path, I have some insights on what's necessary to get to these next steps and to make a difference when they go back in their own countries. And I think that I would encourage them to have a very healthy balance between the theory of what they're doing, the how of it in that sense, but also practical tools. The combination can be very powerful for having an impact when they return home, because if you can only go in and talk about what's important, but not do it yourself at the entry level, that's a very big challenge, because it means you're leaving it to somebody else, and you will not have as great of impact. But if you can acquire tools, whatever they may be, in your area, economics tools, geographic information systems for making maps that help with something, whatever the tools are, as well as all the rest that we're getting in CIFE, you can be very effective when you return home. That's the advice I would give them.